Here comes a new challenger!
Hello there everyone, and welcome to a video titled The Perfect Echo Fighter. Or at least in my opinion, right? But I gotta remove that last part. And in this one we're talking about Dark Pit and Chrom, and why these two characters are the perfect Echo Fighters for, well, their respective characters. Obviously Roy for Chrom and Pit for Dark Pit. Well, what makes them so perfect amongst the other Echo/clones? Well, in my personal opinion, these characters are perfect in the sense that they do not overshadow the other character, nor does the other character fully overshadow them. For instance, in the case of Roy, Chrom and Roy are very much, Chrom is considered worse than Roy, but there are definitely times where you would want to prefer playing Chrom. After all, Chrom's whole gimmick is that his sword is strong throughout the blade rather than the base of the blade, right? Makes sense. So for Chrom, there are times where you just want to pick him because, for spacing reasons or whatever the case may be. Sometimes maybe you just want a funny be out of shield, right? There are times where picking Chrom is either better or a bit more preferred than Roy. But Roy is still just as a strong character, and there will be times where you would want to pick Roy over Chrom, because since you're forcing the opponent to, or the opponent is forced to always approach you, you're always going to get your bases, and you can still mess with tipper and base combos, you know what I mean, right? In the case of Roy. So despite Chrom and Roy having substantially a pretty big difference, right? I mean, Chrom just doesn't have any sweet or sour spots and has a different up B, but Roy does. Those are significant, because it affects the entire moveset. That's pretty big. So for the fact that these two characters are pretty much on an even playing field really says a lot for these two characters. The same really applies to Dark Pit. Dark Pit only really has two different moves, being Arrow, as it doesn't really move as much as Pit's does, and his other move being Side B, which always sends to the side instead of, well, upward, right? Because Pit has the upper dash arm, but his arrows can move everywhere. Dark Pit's can't. They can slightly curve, but that's about it. They're mostly better at killing. They're essentially, in my opinion, a better wolf laser. One that you can delay, you can angle, but you won't be able to get as many good edge guards with this arrow. So, for instance, there'll be times where Dark Pit will be preferred over Pit, because since Pit's arrows won't be able to really edge guard them all too well, you can use Dark Pit's superior arrows in neutral while also having a pretty good side B. I think this one is kind of worse on shield than Pit's, but regardless, it's still pretty good, and it kills obscenely early. So to have these, it's just two differences. Like, it's literally just two differences, unless they kept the Smash 4 difference where their F tilts were different. I don't know why, but with Dark Pit, like I said, only two differences, yet there are still reasons to pick one over the other. Makes sense, right? So, in my opinion, that's what makes a really good clone fighter. It's the idea that you can switch between the character that they're based on while still picking a character that is essentially just a clone fighter, right? If you can alternate between the two, and there's reason to do so, then I think you've achieved making a good clone fighter. This is why, as I will express in a different video, why characters like Marth and Dr. Mario are not really good counterparts, or Lucina and Marth. There are characters in this game that, they're clones, but, either the original is better or the clone is better. There's no in between. There's no middle road. There's no reason why you'd want to pick one character over the other. Or in another case, you have Daisy, Richter, and Dark Samus, which literally have no difference at all, and the only reason why you would pick them over the original is because you prefer Daisy, Dark Samus, or Richter. That's the only reason. In these instances, you have the ability to play both characters. And even if you want to solo main Chrom or Roy or Pit and Dark Pit, if you want to solo main one of those characters, well, guess what? These characters are strong enough that you can play them without needing the other character. Again, showing how well designed Roy and Chrom and Pit and Dark Pit are. Because even though Pit and Dark Pit only really have two significant differences, while Chrom has a major difference because of how his blade works, despite that, they're still really good counterparts to their originals. In my opinion, Ultimate really needs to balance their clones more like these guys. There is such a huge gap between characters like Captain Falcon and Ganon, Mario and Dr. Mario, you know? Even a small gap, which you'd be surprised in the case of like Lucina and Marth, you know, most people have them separated by a tier, you know? But even then, most people are still not going to play Marth over Lucina, you know what I mean? Right? And I'll get into that in a different video. But really, I just wanted to praise the development team for actually making these two the perfect echoes. They do not replace the other character, and that's what I love about these two, and why I wish Ultimate had more clones like these two. In the case of Ken, he's a completely different character from Ryu. Playing Ken and your experience with Ken, yeah, you may have some similar things with Ryu, but overall, those two characters are very different. So even though they have moves that are the same, their playstyles are radically different. They're both very viable characters, and in that sense, Ken is also a good clone to Ryu, if you put it from that perspective, because they're both very strong characters, and if you decide to play them both, similarly to Roy and Chrom, hey, you can pick one, and you can still do well, or you can play both and alternate for certain matchups. That is, in my opinion, what makes a good clone. What makes a good Echo Fighter. Really, the point of this video is just to say that I hope that Daisy, Richter, and Dark Samus become different. I hope that someday these three characters actually become a different character altogether. You know, that they feel different. Because even with Melee, as an example, Melee had characters like Fox and Falco who literally shared animations and everything, but they still had significant differences, right? Even if they shared the same animations. Why is it that we have characters like Daisy, Dark Samus, and Richter who literally have no differences? And why does it feel like there's so much a gap in between certain clone fighters? Like, again, Mario and Dr. Mario. Perfect example. Mario is literally like top tier, while most people consider Dr. Mario a bottom 3 character. Like, let's put that into perspective. So yeah, that was it for this video. Hopefully someday, you know, Nintendo actually does, you know, do that whole Daisy, Richter, Dark Samus thing. And with that being said, I hope you enjoyed. Please take care of yourselves, and as always, have an amazing rest of your fantastic day. Let's get to 1,000 subs, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace!